This video we're going to be going over 5 of the most underrated weapons inside Warzone 2. These are guns that people don't know that are actually pretty good inside this game. Starting off at number 1, and this is a not so secret weapon, but it's the X12 pistols in akimbo. Now everyone's using the P890s, but I do think the X12 is actually a better option, and the reason why is because it actually fires quicker, and not only that, it does have larger magazine capacity. So when it comes to the attachments, you want to use akimbo X12, 24 round mag, or you can stick with the base mags, which are 17 rounds each. Obviously you've got 2 weapons, and then you can maybe put on a different attachment like an ammunition attachment if you really want to. When it comes to the trigger action, you need to use the XRK lightning fire. And then when it comes to weapon tuning, you want to basically go all the way down for sprint to fire speed, because that's all that we really need. Idle stability is not important at all. Aim down sight speed is also not important at all, so that is why we went all the way with recoil smoothness, which, to be honest, you don't really need either because it doesn't really help guns all that much. But like I said, ADS is not even an option on this gun anyway. Then when it comes to the muzzle, you do want the steel fire suppressor, and again, when it comes to the tuning here, you want to go all the way with recoil smoothness because we don't really need the aim down sight speed. And then we have made a slight adjustment to bullet velocity because you are able to land a couple of shots even at a kind of medium range with this gun, so that's why I did bump up the bullet velocity just a bit. And then idle stability isn't super important anyway because we're not aiming down sights. And then lastly, we are using the sidearm laser, which is going to give you extra hip fire accuracy. Next up, we've got the Icarus LMG. Now, I used this gun as ground loot. It felt super good, so I wanted to make a build of this weapon, and to be honest, it's a very solid choice. Pretty much all LMGs in this game are a good choice for long range, to be perfectly honest. They have a lot less idle sway, and they have more aiming stability than assault rifles. Not only that, the slow pace of the game just kind of favors LMGs anyway. So when it comes to the build, I'm actually using the pineapple grip. Now, I tend to usually use the FTAC Ripper, and that's for the side-to-side wobble, but this gun doesn't really have too much of that. And then I do think the pineapple underbarrel feels just a little bit better to me when you're actually in game and keeping your shots on target. So this is the weapon tuning that I've done for the pineapple grip. I mean, there's nothing that's going to help with extra recoil control, but it definitely helps with making the gun a little bit snappier with the aim down sight speed. Harbinger D20 suppressor is what we're using here with the following tuning on that one. You want to go more towards aim down sight time, recoil smoothness is not too important, and leave the bullet velocity slider as it is. Now, we do have the cold forged barrel on here. Now, this is the longest barrel for this gun. It gives you damage range and bullet velocity. Now, it doesn't give you recoil control, which I wish it did. Give you a little bit of recoil control because it'd make this gun feel like an absolute laser beam, and I think that's probably the reason why they kind of opted away from giving this barrel recoil control, because this gun would be probably like the #1 meta gun. But overall, it's definitely still a solid choice. Now, you can go for the ammunition, which is high velocity instead, but I'd rather take the bullet velocity and the damage range bonus with the barrel. And then the ground loot variant actually had the barrel on there, so I didn't really want to change that too much. Then when it comes to the bottom slider, you don't want to change that too much because you need aim down sight speed and damage range, and then recoil steadiness is more important than aim walking speed for an LMG anyway. Then we are using the OLE laser, which is going to give you the aim down sight speed and aiming stability, which is just overall the best laser in the game. And then we are using the Cronin Mini Pro. Now, I was using a low zoom optic when it comes to that ground loot variant, so I just wanted to make something again similar to that build. And then here we've got the eye position as close because I'm using a lower zoom optic, and then when I come to using like high zoom optics like the VLK, I tend to push it far. It just kind of gives you that little bit of kind of in between zoom level, and then we are maxing out the aim down sight speed there. Now, when it comes to how this actually feels in game, landing shots is super easy. Now, it's not as easy as some other guns that you can be using, for example, like the M13, but overall, it's definitely a very solid gun, and at range, if you're hitting your shots, it feels like it melts through players like super easy, and even if you tap fire this, because LMGs do way more damage. Next up is the STB. Now, I've actually used this gun a couple of times in a few games, and it feels really good. I think the mag capacity does let it down a little bit. 42 rounds isn't quite as good as having like a 60 round mag, but overall this gun is still super accurate, so it doesn't really matter too much. And plus the TTK in this game is just really fast, so I mean, unless they increase the health, they might need to increase the mag capacity on this one. But when it comes to the other attachments, FTAC Ripper with the following tuning right here. I don't want to waste too much time on individual tuning, but the tuning on each different gun is going to be slightly different, of course. Then we are using the Harbinger 20 suppressor. Again, you want to keep that bottom slider 0. I don't know why I've messed about with that there, but the bottom slider should be at 0, and then the one on the left should be negative 0.9. And then when it comes to the best barrel for this gun, it's definitely the Brune Gorilla barrel. This is going to give you recoil control and bullet velocity. There's a lot of barrels to choose from with this gun, but this is definitely the best one I've tested out. And then again, with the bottom slider, you don't want to touch that. Recoil steadiness, you want to do plus 0.32 on the left hand side slider there. And then VLK optic, but I do have it set to far, and then the fastest possible aim down sight speed. Now, showing you the recoil on this gun, it's pretty much straight up, as you can see here. It doesn't really deviate too far away from that. So as long as you're pulling vertically downwards, it's quite easy to hit your shots there, and there's not a whole load of side to side bounce on this gun either. The next one is a definite sleeper, and even though it's one of the starting guns in the game, not a lot of people are actually using it, but this build is the perfect build for the Vel 46 or the MP7. Now, this is a hipfire build, and I think hipfiring on SMGs is probably the most important thing you can do to get the fastest possible TTK. Now, sprint to fire times and all that good stuff is a lot slower in this game, and overall movement is slower, so you cannot finesse as much as you could before. And getting the fastest possible TTK means not wasting time aiming down sight. So if you can have a super accurate hipfire spread with an SMG and then still have good control when you do aim down sights, then the Vel 46 is a solid option, and I use this as ground loot all the time, especially if it's available to me. So 50 round mags, because we do need it. We are using the soldier grip, and that's because we're not using like a no stock attachment here, because it cons the recoil far too much to even make this viable when you're aiming down sight. So you'd rather just make it up with some other aiming down sight or movement attachments like this one. Then when it comes to the tuning here, we've not really touched it too much, but the left hand side slider has been bumped down to give you a bit faster aim down sight speed. We are using the Hipshot L20, which is going to give you hip fire accuracy essentially, which is what we need. And then when it comes to the suppressor, the Covert V suppressor, in my opinion, for SMGs is the best, because it doesn't con your aim down sight time nearly as much as the rest. And then we've got the aim down sight time slider all the way down, because recoil smoothness doesn't really do too much. And then we have the bullet velocity slider not touched there. And then we do have the Merc foregrip, which I do think is the best underbarrel grip for SMGs. Again, we've bumped up the length, so more towards hip fire accuracy and then more towards hip walking speed as well, which we do need. So what I'll show you here is how tight the hip fire spread actually is with this gun. You can pretty much laser people at like 20 meters. Now you will need to aim down sight at some point, obviously, and that's why the control is still really good on this gun. But for that hip firing, if you're at super close range, you're not going to be missing any shots, and you're definitely going to be outputting a ton of damage before anyone even gets a chance to aim down sight with their weapon. Last but not least, we have what is, in my opinion, the best sniper in the game at the moment, and that is the Signal 50. Now, the reason why the Signal is the best sniper in the game is because every single sniper in this game is a minimum 2-shot kill if you've got 3 armor plates on your enemy. And what that means is no 1-shot headshots, so unless they kind of patch that in the future, I think the Signal is going to be the best gun, and the reason for that is because it's got the fastest possible fire rate, and that's because it's a semi-automatic sniper. Now, when it comes to the attachments, we've got the finesse grip on there for a faster aim down sight speed. Very important. Recoil control is not too important with this gun, even though you should still consider recoil control because this gun is semi-automatic, unlike the other snipers in the game. When it comes to attachment tuning with the finesse grip, this is the attachment tuning right here. So you don't want to touch the bottom slider, but you do want to touch the left hand side slider right there for the aim down sight speed. Again, we're using the inline stock. This is going to give you a faster aim down sight speed. This is behind the camera, unfortunately. But when it comes to the tuning there, this is what you want for the tuning. So you do want to go plus 1.16 on the length and then negative 2.58 on the weight. And overall, this is going to give you a snappy enough weapon Then we are using the OLE laser again for the aim down sight time and aiming stability. We're using the Kilo 50 barrel, which is the best and longest barrel for this gun. Again, the attachment tuning is right here, so you don't want to touch the bottom slider. You do want to touch the left hand side slider. Now, recoil steadiness could be important with this gun as well, so you could change that slider there, but I'd rather have a bit more movement speed. So if you do want a bit more recoil control, then you can bump this up slightly higher. So that's kind of personal preference on that one. And again, the Kilo 50 is going to give you the best bullet velocity, so that's why we went with this barrel and not the rest of the other options there, which do help a bit more recoil control, but that's not too super important for Warzone. Then we are using the Brunop suppressor, which is the best suppressor. It helps with bullet velocity the most, and it also helps with your damage range as well, whereas some of the other ones do not help with damage range. And then when it comes to attachment tuning, we're just basically all the way down on aim down sight speed, because recoil smoothness is definitely not going to help with this gun. And then we don't want to change bullet velocity or idle stability, because both of those are very important. So with the Signal 50, of course, you could fire 2 shots off in quick succession. Obviously, these dummies are going to die in 1 shot, but obviously a 3-plated opponent will take 2 shots to kill, and you being able to land those 2 shots in quick succession is going to be very, very useful in winning long range gunfights. And this is the most dominant sniper in the game, especially people using it as ground loot, so make sure you've got it as a loadout class as well. So there we have it. Those are 5 underrated guns. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.